Dear Mr. Rahul Gandhi, today, the 28th June 2021, is a very important day in the Indian history. Today is the birth centenary of an active freedom fighter and one of the most intelligent prime ministers India had ever seen, Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao. It was so surprising for me that I couldn't see even a single tweet about Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao from your account. So sad, so mean, and so pathetic, Mr. Gandhi. Namaste, Hindustan. My name is Raghunath. I am an Indian Air Force veteran. Mr. Rao was the Prime Minister who was victimized and made to step down from the Dynasty party because of the minority appeasement politics of the Italian imported nasty dynasty. He was the Congress President and Prime Minister and the implementer of the liberal economic policy which led India to a new India after India became a pathetic economy subsequent to the collapse of the Soviet Union. The KGB agent turned political parasite Madam and her tail-wagging supporters repeatedly said that Babri Masjid was demolished because of Mr. Rao. But the fact is that Babri Masjid would have been demolished on that particular day itself, irrespective of who was ruling at the center on that particular day. Because it was a Hindu monument of humiliation. It was demolished by the outsmart, not by Mr. Rao's fault. UP was then ruled by a BJP Chief Minister, Mr. Kalyan Singh. For them, it was not important who was responsible for what. Because the nasty dynasty was in desperate hunt for an opportunity to victimize Mr. Rao because Madam Sahiba wanted a complete control over the party and she knew it is impossible for her to outsmart a brilliant, patriotic, true Indian in Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao. Had the Babri Masjid not been demolished then, the communal riots in India would have been repeated. Millions would still be killed even today. And look at the double standard of the Congress. They did not hesitate to share power in Maharashtra with the Shiv Sena, which also took part in Babri Masjid demolition. But Mr. Rao is untouchable for them because Rao did not yield to the machinations or the conspiracies of the Nehru dynasty. And so, the arrogant Madam and teams even insulted his body. Mr. Rao's body was even denied a public viewing at the AICC headquarters. However, the time has not spared Congress from the nature's way of justice. The Congress is wandering in the Indian politics without even getting an opposition leader position. Not once, but twice. The Congress collapsed in such a way that a return looks almost impossible unless the dynasty is thrown out. But unfortunately, the slaves cannot even breathe without the dynasty's stink. The AICC headquarters, which was ridiculously closed its doors in front of Rao's body, looks like a burial ground now. It was not Rao who put the Congress in this position. It is that nasty dynasty which brought Congress to its worst situation ever. There is no deed in human history that has not been accounted for a long time. Italian dynasty's minority appeasement and anti-Hindu stance led to the complete collapse of the Indian National Congress. When Rahul Gandhi had to run away from his ancestral constituency of Amethi due to his anti-Hindu stance, the political Islam supported Rahul Gandhi's victory from Kerala in the 2019 verdict. Today, Islamic extremism reached its peak in Kerala, where even a DGP is confessing to have known about hundreds of sleeper cells. But not even a single congressman went so far as to protest or object. Because they fear it may lead to the extreme displeasure of the Madam, son, daughter trio. Was Mr. Rao responsible for this nonsense? No. Mr. Rao was responsible for the economic reformation of India. He dismantled the license Raj and he reversed the socialist policies of the Rajiv Gandhi government. Mr. Rao was also referred to as Chanakya for his ability to steer economic and political legislation through the parliament at a time when he headed a minority government. Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam acknowledged that Mr. Rao in fact asked him to get ready for the nuclear test in 1996. But they were not carried out as the government at the center got changed due to the 1996 general election. And the tests were later conducted by the Vajpayee-led India government. In fact, Mr. Rao briefed the next Prime Minister, Mr. Vajpayee, on the nuclear plans. Yes, Mr. Rao briefed. Mr. Rao's other major achievements include steering India through the 1991 economic crisis, establishing a diplomatic relation with Israel, very important, because we never had any diplomatic relations with Israel before that. Starting India's Look East policy, rekindling India's nuclear program, defeating the 1994 United Nations resolutions against India. And look at his statesmanship. He selected Mr. Vajpayee as the leader of the Indian team to the United Nations. And he was the one who has effectively handled and crushed the insurgency problems in the Punjab. He had a very tough policy against terrorism in Kashmir. And he is the one who introduced Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act, TADA, and he also opened a partial diplomatic relationship with Taiwan. The 11th President of India, Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam, described Rao as a patriotic statesman who believed that the nation is bigger than the political system. Hence, there is no wonder why the corrupt, power-hungry, pro-Pakistani and pro-Chinese Dynasty disliked him and disrespected even his dead body. But this is a new modified India. Citizens don't wait for the time to take action. Today, Indian minds works ahead of the time. We are learned to and are bold enough to say, get out to the traitor parasites. Namaste, Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.